Hi, everybody. Thanks for logging in. We're going to get started. Give people a few more minutes to get registered and log in, and then we'll get started in just a few minutes.
Good morning, and welcome to the virtual MARACOOS annual meeting, part one. My name is Garrett Kuskin. I'm the executive director of MARACOOS. First, I hope that you and your family and friends are healthy and keeping well during this unprecedented time of societal distancing. And I certainly look forward to the time when we can meet again in person. For now, please accept our heartfelt thanks for spending time with us today to review the draft MARACOOS strategic plan. You know, we understand how many of these types of sessions you're involved in these days, so we want to make this as streamlined and effective and short as possible. We also appreciate your understanding if we experience any technical difficulties with today's sessions. We'll deal with them if and when they happen. You notice I said part one of the annual meeting. In the interest of avoiding lengthy sessions, we're spreading the annual meeting out over 3 sessions. As such, we'll be holding 2 additional sessions in the future, one in late June and one in July, and more information will be sent out soon. So I won't give you a longer introduction on the history of IUS or MARACOOS, which may disappoint some of you, but certainly will be a relief to most of you. But before we jump into the draft plan, I'd like to share with you a little bit about what we've been up to during the past several months of quarantine and restrictions. In early March, when discussions seemed to hint at government considering restrictions, we began to plan for potential closures and continuity of operations for our observing, modeling, data management, and engagement efforts. Our partners on the operational side have done amazing work over the past several months to continue the essential work that MARACOOS partners do, and I want to thank all of them, many of whom are on this call today. It's your tireless efforts to live up to and always strive to exceed the world-class reputation of US IUS that makes us what we are today. So thank you. Now, the development of the strategic plan to help guide MARACOOS into the future is in line with our sister regional associations, USIUS, as well as best practices for nonprofit organizations. We began late last year, and I want to take a moment to thank everyone who contributed to get us to where we are today. Beginning with all of you in the community who contributed to the stakeholder survey and to other information collection opportunities, or who provided advice before and throughout this process. This includes, of course, our partner regional associations, IUS and the IUS Association. Next, I'm grateful to the MARACOOS board, who spent many full days and countless hours participating in Zoom sessions and off-camera reviews. They've guided us throughout this process. Many of our board members are on the call today, including our executive committee under the leadership of Dr. Carolyn Thorogood, Chair, Mr. Ed Kelly, Vice Chair, and Dr. Scott Glenn, Vice Chair. I also want to thank our strategic planning committee, composed of several board members and MARACOOS partners, who spent a significant amount of time helping shape and guide the strategic plan and process. You'll hear them mentioned again in a moment, but I wanted to acknowledge them by name. Mr. Doug Wilson, Dr. Carl Friedrichs, Dr. Kathy Bunting-Howarth, Ms. Michelle Covey, and Mr. Jay Titlow. Almost finally, I want to thank my management team, the heart and soul of our operation. Mike Crowley, our technical director, and Mary Ford, our director of engagement and external relations. We also have a small but effective and far-reaching staff across the region for operations and engagement, many of whom are part-time, who support Mike, Mary, and me. And I want to especially thank them for helping bring this effort along and keep our operations and engagement going. This includes our wonderful partner, RPS, who manage our data operations. We all have been walking side by side on the development of this, and I'm grateful for all their work. Finally, I want to thank the gentleman I'm going to introduce to you now, our presenter for today, Mr. Jeremy Phillips. Jeremy is an organizational change process facilitator based in Boston, Massachusetts. Jeremy has worked with MARACOOS and Socorro on strategic planning and is currently working with the IUS Association on its strategic direction. Thank you, Jeremy, for your expertise, your flexibility, your kindness, and your steady hand during this process. We would not be where we are today without you. So with that, let me turn things over. Jeremy, you have the con.
Thanks so much, Gerhard. Thanks everybody at MARACOOS, the staff and board. It's been a real privilege to get to work with you all. I'm sorry not to be in person with all of you. Thank you for joining us, and as Gerhard said, for taking the time to be virtual. We know it's not an easy choice to make with so many competing priorities right now. We are really excited to have you and looking forward to getting your input from this presentation. Just a couple of things real quickly so that we're kind of clear on the process of this session. Everybody is muted. You probably figured that out. We are going to look for your input throughout using the questions tab. And in case you're wondering where that is, I'll show a slide momentarily that gives you a sense of where that is. And we'll take your comments in that same tab if you have comments related to the strategic plan itself. We'll also do polling at certain moments throughout to get your overall feedback, a sense of temperature reading. How is this landing for you? Different elements that we're sharing today. And when we ask for your input, it is just that. It's important to us. We'll take it seriously. This plan is a draft, as it says, and we've put a lot of work into it, as Gerhard indicated, but it wouldn't be complete without getting vetted from you all. And so where we get your input, perspective, insights, we will expect to refine this and use that to finalize the plan and direction for where MARACOOS is going. Just to also add, when you do give questions or comments, you're probably seeing your name comes up with that, so it's not anonymous. Only the staff, the presenters, see your questions or comments, and of course keep them respectful. But just know that that they're not anonymous and that other folks won't be seeing them. Let me just keep going with a couple of logistics here. You can see, in case you're wondering, the control panel. Hopefully you see your control panel already, and this arrow shows the questions tab, and you can pop on that, and some of you, or many of you, are already figuring out that's where you ask questions or give comments, and you can do that throughout. And just know we're not going to respond to every question. We'll try to respond to as many as we can, and particularly focus on questions or comments that relate to where we are in the agenda. If for some reason you're struggling with that tab, as a backup, you can email MARACOOS staff your questions or comments. If you don't have their contact info, we'll show that slide at the end. And so let's look at why we're here today. As Gerhard said, our purpose is to share and test our draft strategic plan with you all, the stakeholders, to ensure its efficacy. We're hoping coming out of today that there's a shared understanding of the strategic plan and strategic planning process. So you all will walk away with that, and we'll walk away with input on the plan's elements and overall testing, sense of temperature reading of the plan's direction. How do people feel about it overall? We feel good about the work that has gone into this draft, and it has involved so many stakeholders already. But again, we know it needs to be vetted by you all to make the improvements and ensure that it's really the right direction. Our agenda, we're in the opening overview, started only 2 minutes late, and we're doing well so far. So we're just getting kind of situated, and then shortly we'll just go through reviewing the process. That's going to be very brief, just to make sure people understand kind of key benchmarks, key highlights from how we got to where we are today from last fall. And then we'll spend the rest of our time walking through the strategic plan and what's happening from here. We intend officially, as you know, to finish by 12 Eastern time. And if things move quickly, we're not going to linger unnecessarily. If we get done sooner, we get done sooner, we all get to move on. So without further ado, I'm gonna take my face off the screen so we can focus on the slides. And we want to, as I said, give a brief background on the process and how we developed this plan's draft, and then we'll get into the plan itself. And just a reminder, feel free to use the question tab to your heart's content, and we'll try to watch that as we go so that we can respond to, for now, process questions and later on content questions in real time. So the purpose of this strategic plan is, and this process is for MARACOOS to develop a 5-year strategic plan that provides a shared co-owned vision and priority goals and a roadmap for how to get there. This will include an implementation plan that sets MARACOOS up for success and ensures that the plan is usable and living in the organization. We should say this draft here today has the primary elements of this strategic plan, of this roadmap. And there's details to come that we haven't worked on yet and aren't really, they're more in the weeds and aren't critical for you all to be part of. And that includes the implementation plan, but we mention it here just so folks understand it's so critical. Lots of you, I'm sure, have been through strategic planning processes and feel good about a strategic plan that's developed, and then the old cliche that it just sits on your shelf or somewhere in a folder in your virtual world on your computer screen. And so this implementation plan is really, really critical, that MARACOOS is going to use this roadmap. It's real. It's going to guide the work of the next 5 years ahead. In terms of process highlights, again, not to bore you with too many details, but as Gerhard mentioned, this timeline, we started the process last fall and expect to finalize these primary elements that we're sharing today as soon as possible after today, depending the kinds of input and specific changes that we need to make based on what we get from you. And then the entire plan, some of those details of implementation and in the weeds details by June 30th, just so folks know. In terms of who's been engaged in the process, as Gerhard mentioned, a very dedicated strategic planning committee was formed, made up of board members and stakeholders that he mentioned. Thank you all so much again. From my perspective, you were really, really important. And they've guided and supported the entire process and have ended up meeting, I don't know, 10 times since December. It's been a lot. the broadest swatch of folks who we were able to engage was through an assessment that we did. A survey went out to the community of stakeholders. Hopefully most of you all, if not all of you, got that survey. This was back in the winter. And we got a good number of responses from you. So we've already got a lot of input from the field and various sectors about where MARACOOS should go, what's going on, where MARACOOS can add the most value. And of course, as Gerhard said, the MARACOOS board has been very engaged. It had a virtual retreat across 3 sessions in March into April to generate these preliminary elements that we're sharing today, informed by those assessment findings. And they met again recently to add additional input based on some of the refining work that the MARACOOS staff management team did. And as Gerhard said, this has been a super dedicated leadership of the staff that's refined elements in the plan in conversation with the Strategic Planning Committee and the board in order that we could get here today to share this full draft. And that brings us to today, to why we're here. So thank you again for joining. And just to say, in response to a question, the board would in some way approve these primary elements. And so that will be sort of the full circle piece to loop back to the board in response to a question that I see. And eventually this will be shared and posted and publicly disseminated in various ways. Thank you for the questions. I'm gonna keep going from here. So the strategic plan itself, why you're here, I'm sure. Please continue to ask questions or comment as we go through the elements, and we'll do our best to respond. And again, we're not going to respond to each and every question, but the ones that fit where we are with the plan. If you feel like you weren't heard for some reason, just recognizing the challenges of this format, right? That you're muted, that we don't get to kind of mingle and chat in real time the way we would in person. Again, there's a slide with contact info at the end. I'm sure most of you already know how to reach MARACOOS folks, but please feel free. And again, we're going to do a couple of several real-time polls to get a broader sense of how this is landing for folks. And those will be pretty straightforward. If you haven't done one before, it just pops up on your screen and you get to choose and from a couple of choices, and that'll give us a sense of temperature reading overall. So you can look forward to engaging in that way with your mouse clicking. Okay, so the plan. We begin with what I call the big guiding ideas, mission, vision, and values, which is on the next slide. The mission was really only slightly tweaked from this process, and just to define what we mean by mission, knowing that strategic planning language is used in all different ways, and many of us have different understandings of these elements. Not to say that my definitions are right, but just how we were using them for this process. So mission is your purpose plus your business, who you are, what needs you exist to address, what you do to address that need. And as you can see, this beautiful mission, not that I'm biased, MARACOOS powers understanding and prediction of the Mid-Atlantic Ocean, coast, and estuaries. Just letting that sink in. And the 10-year vision. And by vision, we mean a statement of desired impact, a picture of a successful future. If and when, I'll say when, MARACOOS is successful in 10 years. 10-year vision is that MARACOOS's innovative, high-quality data products and solutions are integral to a diverse and expansive range of stakeholders who make decisions that save lives and property, support the economy, and improve the health and resilience of our region. And again, you can take that in, you can add comments. There's 70-something of you attending, so we welcome as many of you commenting as possible. The core values are newly articulated. These are your beliefs in action, what you stand for. They're aspirational. They're not limited to current reality. So just like all of us in our personal lives, our personal values, we strive to uphold. MARACOOS is going to strive to uphold, is striving to uphold these values. And as you can see, they're seeing them as interrelated and guiding their work and how they do it. And they're all equally important. They're not in like sequential order or anything. And so core values, stakeholder driven. We believe in understanding and responding to the needs of our diverse stakeholders in the Mid-Atlantic. Inclusiveness and fairness. We believe that all stakeholder needs are important and should have equitable attention and coverage. Quality and accessibility. We believe in delivering high quality data products and solutions that are accessible to all. Innovation and leadership. We believe in consistently pursuing best practices, creativity, and new ideas that can serve as a model in our region and beyond. Partnerships. We believe that building and leveraging collaborative relationships furthers our mission. Reliability and commitment. We believe in sustained operations and partnerships by being there every day over time for our stakeholders. And so with that, we're again taking comments and going to have our first poll. So see overall like how these are landing for you, mission, vision, and values. To what degree do they capture the big guiding ideas MARACOOS should be using as its foundation and as its in its overall big picture where they're trying to get. And we'll give you a minute to respond. And just to say, I'm trying to look at the questions in real time as you give them. So seeing some helpful input on vision and values. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Thank you. Hopefully that was fun engagement since we're limited here and how we can interact with each other. Again, we'll have more polls as we go throughout. Thank you for responding and just appreciate like people's initial reactions are those look good. So thanks. Not that, you know, if things don't look good, we want to hear that too, obviously. So other key elements, the actual strategy, the where the rubber hits the road here, the priority goals, and we'll get to core strategies that are linked to each of these goals. The priority goals are broad overall priorities to accomplish, to best fulfill mission and achieve vision. And you can see the 5 here: expanded and diversified stakeholder community, increased understanding of stakeholder needs, more dependable, innovative, and expanded data collection and curation, tailored data products and solutions based on stakeholder needs, more diverse, collaborative, innovative, and overall healthier organization. So those are the 5 priority goals. And we'll get to core strategies in a second, which are the main things that an organization will do to reach each of its goals, or the primary types of activities. Again, just trying to look at your questions. I see a couple of you are having technical issues that behind the scenes, hopefully we're trying to address. I will try, when the poll comes up, I will try to remember to put things back on the screen so you can take them in more. And we do want to get a sense of your overall reaction to this set of goals, and then we'll go through each goals, core strategies, and I'll talk through those, and then we'll go back through to poll each set of the individual goals and their strategies. So there's going to be a lot of polling coming up, but first let's just see people's reactions to the goals. So that's a cue for the poll to come up. And then I'm going to click back so people can see the goals as they do it, if that's helpful. So just some people are wanting to get a sense of how other people are taking this in. The first guiding ideas, it was about 80% or so that people said look great, and most of the other folks were that they're okay, but need a little work. For the goals, a little over half say they're looking great, and fewer than half are saying they're okay, and a small minority, 3%, don't like them at all. And again, we're going to, this is really helpful temperature reading for us, so appreciate it. There's a question about modeling and why that's not in the goals. Some folks consider model output as data, but most do not. And Gerhard, I'm wondering if you can jump in and have a response to that or quickly.
Apologize, I'm having technical difficulty here with the internet, it seems. Could you repeat that? You broke up.
Yeah, so there's a question about modeling and why that's not somewhere in the goals, with the comment that some folks consider model output as data, but most do not. I'm just curious
Yes.
if you have a take on that, or whether that's helpful input for us.
It's helpful that there's a sense that it's not being included, but it's certainly part of a core part of what we do and is embodied in 3 and 4. And we should see that expressed in broad categorical terms when we go through the core strategies in a bit. But that's certainly helpful input to make sure that that is clear to everyone seeing it, that modeling is a core part of what we do.
Thanks, Gerhard. Yeah, there's a few couple of comments on that. And a few of you are commenting on just sort of some of these are broad, and that is the point of the strategies. And we'll also be doing that we're not sharing today and haven't finalized yet, in like metrics or indicators of success that better define these goals. But the strategies, I hope, will give you a better sense of like, what do you mean by this? What does a overall healthier organization look like? And so hopefully, again, some of that will come out through the strategies. So let me go into those. So again, the core strategies we're thinking of as the primary things or activities MARACOOS will do to achieve each goal. And they are goal specific, although there is some overlap with strategies potentially across goals. So for goal 1, as you can see, expanded and diversified stakeholder community, the core strategies identify and assess existing stakeholders for who they are and how we interact with them, assess availability of existing relevant regional resources, identify gaps in stakeholder representation, address gaps in stakeholder representation. And you'll see as we go through other goals that some of these are filled out in their relationship to other goals. But Gerhard, again, I'm wondering if you want to just add a little bit of insight into these strategies for goal 1.
Certainly, I think what the strategies are trying to achieve is for us to do a better job of understanding who our partners are and making sure that we have representation from as broad as possible across the community and across the region. So identifying and assessing existing stakeholders for who they are and how we interact with them, assessing our availability of existing relevant regional resources. So first is figuring out where we are, who we are working with, looking into with some of our partnerships, some of our allied groups and the work they're doing so that we don't have to recreate efforts that are already in place and being used. And then looking where we're in 3 and 4, where there are gaps in representation and how we might fill what some of the approaches are we might use to fill those gaps and create as broad a possible stakeholder community as possible. And stakeholders include not just users of the data, but the partners that work to collect the data and those that use those data to create and tailor data products and solutions.
Thanks, Gerhard. And just referencing back to a question about the overall goals, they're not in any sequential order of importance per se, but also are a set in terms of all 5 of those goals are a priority. Let's keep going with the core strategies. And again, Gerhard can explain more as we go. And then just so folks know, we're gonna go back once you see the set or the whole set of strategies for all the goals, then we'll poll you for each of the strategies that relate to each goal. So priority goal 2, increased understanding of stakeholder needs. The core strategies are engage stakeholders to understand needs, maintain information on stakeholders and needs, identify gaps in our understanding of stakeholder needs, and share information on stakeholder needs. And Gerhard, do you want to just add anything that would be helpful for people to know about those?
Certainly, although I think they're rather self-explanatory and rather high level in terms of their coverage. I think it's noteworthy that we want to make sure that we do a strong job of not just collecting and managing the information we do, but really sharing it both internally and externally so that others can benefit and in other parts of the strategy use that to tailor our efforts. We really want a strong research to application and application to research, which will be brought up later. And this is a critical part of us being stakeholder based.
Thank you. Just wondering back quickly with the first goals in terms of identifying existing relevant regional resources. I just want to clarify that's also related to stakeholders. And when we say stakeholder, we spend a lot of time defining that. And so that is any kind of person, user, partner, etc., kind of falls into the big umbrella of stakeholder. And hearing that maybe it's a little difficult to understand what's meant by resources in that first goal. Moving on to goal 3, more dependable, innovative, and expanded data collection and curation. Core strategies, maintain and enhance infrastructure availability and readiness. Identify and incorporate new data acquisition systems based on data product requirements driven by stakeholders. Maintain and enhance data and systems quality assurance / quality control. Ensure and enhance resilient data management and accessible delivery systems. Build team capacity for technical staff / expertise. And again, Gerhard, please, if folks haven't figured out, I am not a content expert. I'm a process facilitator, as Gerhard said, so it's really helpful. Gerhard, if you don't mind, if you want to add some insight to these. He may be having technical difficulties again.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
I was, but I'm here. It's,
great.
Those in the operational world, and both in MARACOOS and in the Mid-Atlantic, will find a home in these core strategies and in this goal. As I mentioned, modeling is also in priority goal 4, but here we wanted to emphasize, and what we're hearing from the community is basically confirming a lot of what we already do, but in a more formalized way. Maintaining, enhancing infrastructure are the efforts that we, this includes not just the physical infrastructure, but the systems infrastructure that we use, you know, the models as well, but the HF radars, the gliders, our satellite receiving stations. The infrastructure that we have, we want to be able to support and make sure that we have a plan for replacing, for augmenting, and keeping them going. Again, this goes back to our core values of sustained observations. We need to find new data acquisition systems. We leverage those from others. QA/QC, we are a certified regional association along with the other regional associations in the country, and that we take that very seriously. Our data management and our access to those data in standard formats is a very important part of what we do, and something that is done by most in our region, I would say. But we want to emphasize the importance is really building that capacity to maintain these over the long term. We want to make sure that our technical staff, our expertise in all the areas that we engage is there and is available going into the future. We want to have backup systems. We want to make sure that we train the future as well. And so that is what's embodied in this goal.
Thanks so much, Gerhard. And just to, again, be really transparent as possible here, given the way we're trying to interact with you, I am seeing in real time a lot of just really helpful input around, oh, you should add, this piece to better explain it, or are you thinking of this nuance? For example, goal 3, strategy 5 could say build and advertise team capacity versus just build team capacity, right? So that's really helpful. And more so post-meeting, we're going to take into account all of these helpful comments. And I'm sure you will see some tweaks to this plan minimally. So thank you for those. And just, I'm not gonna necessarily refer to all the comments that we're getting in real time. Moving on, onward we go. Priority goal 4, tailored data products and solutions based on stakeholder needs, the core strategies. Develop, implement stakeholder-driven approaches to support research to operations, applications, and operations applications to research, with some slashes in there. Develop approaches to coordinate/support user-friendly product development through external partners. Leverage partnerships, exchange information, and share best practices to develop user-friendly MARACOOS data products. And again, Gerhard, whatever you need to elucidate or illuminate from here, we really appreciate it.
Well, this is in some ways the heart of what we do, bringing together the community and the needs with the scientific community, with the applied scientific community, to ensure that that which we offer, which we build, which we supply, meets those needs. They're done in various ways, through our own efforts and through the efforts of partners, external partners, which could be and which are in government, in the private sector, or in other allied entities. So it's really important that we recognize here that we do not do everything. We want to support our partners' efforts, and we want to supply our partners with the data they need to create the products that they need for their users. In some cases, we will be the one delivering. In some cases, they will be. Some cases, we will walk hand in hand. This includes not just data, this includes our modeling efforts too as products. I just wanted to clarify that too, because that came up earlier. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. And I'm seeing just this great question in general about the strategic plan. And yes, it will move into actionable steps, right? And so these core strategies will develop indicators or metrics of success for each of the strategies, and then that will filter down into work plans or annual plans as part of the implementation steps that we'll take. And we haven't done that yet, just being transparent, in part because we don't see the strategies as finalized until we've gotten your input. And somebody's asking, will funding priorities align with these goals and strategies? And that's part of sort of goal number 5 will interrelate with these other goals and strategies, right? To think about funding. And so, yes, these are aspirational, and we're going to look at how does the organization need to align so that these can be achieved, and what does that look like? So great question, and hopefully my answer made some sense. On that note, goal 5, kind of the internal goal, right? More diverse, collaborative, innovative, and overall healthier organization. And so the core strategies, the main activities we'll do to achieve this goal: ensure that operational and governance structures enable sound best practices for management, promote effective internal communications, maintain and strengthen relations with allied organizations, partners, and funders, promote a strong brand, expand and diversify funding. And as we get into the weeds of that, again, that should align with our priorities, right? And support team excellence and continuity. And this is less technical and more in my my realm, right? Because it's organizational. But Gerhard, if you want to add pieces here, they do look a little bit more self-explanatory to me anyway. But please, Gerhard, if you want.
Yes, this is, we have made progress on a number of these over the years. I would say on all of these to differing degrees. So it's not that we aren't doing any of these, but certainly no organization is done, and we have more to do. And I think the point of these 6 is to evolve us into the healthiest, best functioning organization we can be, focusing on the positives that we can, managing that which we have in an efficient and effective way, and looking for ways to grow, to be able to deliver those things in the other 4 goals.
Thank you. And just seeing, you know, some comments around these strategies and the internal health of the organization and whether we should use that word. And just to say again, we actually did a glossary, and we'll include it with the strategic plan when it's disseminated. And folks are asking again about stakeholder, what does that mean? And just to say, we define stakeholder as really broad, so that includes any user, partner, potential, you know, person in the region who has touch points with MARACOOS. So what we want to do is go back through these now that you've got a sense of the whole collective of the strategies, to gauge your reactions with the polls. So we're going to have 5 different polls for each of these goals and strategies. And again, we're seeing your input as well, and really encourage you to respond to each poll, even if it gets a little redundant, because that will give us a better sense of like, how are people overall feeling about each of these. So back to goal 1, I'm not going to read them out again. I'll let you look at it. We'll cue the poll, and then I'll go back to the slide so you can see them as you respond. So poll for goal 1 and its strategies. And hopefully you can see them as you vote. Thank you for responding on these. It looks like about 60% or so said they look great, and about 40% said, you know, they're okay and need a little work. And we saw a bunch of comments and input on the little bit of work, I think. So that's really helpful, and just appreciate, you know, that they're at least close to where we want to be. So going to goal 2, and again, we're just going to repeat this. So I won't read them out again. You can see it. I'm going to cue the poll and then let you see the slide again as you respond to goal 2. And thanks for hanging in there as we go through these. Just giving it another few seconds. And these are about half and half, so that's good to know, to see that folks feel a little bit more mixed, but again, looking great, or, you know, they just may need a little bit of work is the general, well, the 100% of folks feel either that among those 2 choices. So thanks for that. Gonna keep moving to goal 3. Hang in there for 3 more of these. So I'll let you look at it, cue the poll. And go back to the slide so you can take it in as you vote. Just another couple seconds. There we go. So the results here. 55% said they look great, and 45% that they're okay but need a little work. So thank you for your input on those. And again, we have lots of comments to kind of connect to the folks who are saying they need a little bit of work. We'll be able to take in what that is. 2 more to go. Hopefully your voting fingers aren't getting cramped. You can see goal 4 and its core strategies. We'll cue the poll. And go back so you can see. Trying to go back. Whoop. I went too far back. And I think we'll close that up. Yeah, and just seeing that, and we saw there were definitely more comments on this goal, I think. So almost half of you say they look great. This is, and more than half say they're okay but need a little work. So that's helpful to see. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm seeing that when I go back to the slide, you aren't seeing it. Or at least some of you aren't seeing it. So I'll try to stay on. And Mary, if you just want to, for the last one here, I'll just stay on the slide for goal 5 and let you queue up the poll in a minute. So queuing up the poll. Last one. Just a few more seconds on this 5th internal goal focused on the organization itself. Thank you. Whew, it's our last poll. You can stretch your fingers, get the cramps out, shake your wrists a little bit. A little under half are saying they look great, and over half are saying they're okay but need a little work. We are seeing your comments again related to all of these. I apologize if I wasn't giving enough time. Just visually, that's my mistake with the with the technology, obviously. And again, we'll take in your comments and include that, right, as we make changes and look to move forward and refine and finish this. And in terms of finishing, we're close to finishing this overall session on the strategic plan. Thank you so much for your listening, your input. We got a lot of questions and comments to think about and take in, and we will take them very seriously. And your responses to the polls as well, which, you know, offhand look like, okay, we're on track here, which is a big relief. And then there's bits of work to do to make sure this is really understandable, that it's including all the things that matter most in terms of the actual strategic direction that we need to go. And then obviously, right, some opinions and perspectives people have aren't going to end up being included, and we're doing our best to create the roadmap that makes the most sense for the organization. And there's always going to be some divergence in what that should be from different perspectives. But we will take all your comments really seriously. You can see the next steps just in terms of this process. As I said, we'll incorporate your input. We'll finalize these current elements very shortly. I can't give an exact date because part of it is responding to, okay, how much work do we have to do based on this session? But really, really quickly. And then the final strategic plan will be approved. And then there's other elements that are more detail oriented and don't need to be approved in the same way that the management team and somewhat the board as well will engage in terms of measures of success or indicators or metrics, whatever you want to call them, and some of those implementation and integration plans that I touched on. It's been lovely to spend this time with you. I wish I could have met you all in person. I'm seeing names that I have gotten to meet virtually through this process, through your engagement already. And I'm just checking if there's other last kind of questions that I can respond to before I hand it back to Gerhard to do a little bit of wrap up and give you all some other information. So it's asking how many stakeholder surveys were collected. I think it was close to 180 something, 85 maybe, is my memory on how many surveys we got. And again, just giving a last look. So some folks are hoping to see more of those details, and we'll figure that out, what makes sense to share with everybody and what just feels like, okay, this is a staff person's work plan or whatever that everybody doesn't need to be part of. But seeing that interest in seeing more of the details. So we'll take that into account. And feel free to keep asking questions. I'll try to keep monitoring that. And otherwise, Gerhard, I'm going to pass it back to you for moving into wrap up. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I just wanted to reiterate that although we've received many, many questions and comments today, we're going to work through all of them and provide a frequently asked questions in some way and build those comments into the strategy as best as we can. Of course, some of the things we've grappled with throughout this process is the hierarchy of these different goal strategies and what is implementation. In many cases, a lot of what we discuss is a function of implementation and will be. We just want to make sure that everything we need to do is embodied in this in some way. And so your views, your questions, your comments are very important. So you have access to this document, to this information that was sent out. If you don't, please send an email to info@maracoos.org. We can send that out again. It's also something you can get through the website. Please provide additional comments if you'd like. We want to hear from you now. Let's go to the next slide, please. And one of the reasons we've been working on this is not just our need to plan for the future, but to do that in lockstep with some of the larger efforts coming. Most of you know that US IUS will be coming out with a notice of federal funding opportunity for the next 5-year IUS cooperative agreement cycle. We expect that at sometime in June. Though it is a function when that comes out is a function of internal NOAA processes and grants management. And so we are keeping close contact with US IUS and with our partner regional associations to monitor when that will be coming out. But as part of that process, we will be issuing a request for letters of intent, or an RFLOI, as we've come to refer to it. Not that that makes it any easier to say. That we want to issue in the coming weeks. That will be an opportunity for anyone in the community to provide us with, we're not calling it an official proposal, but akin to an unofficial proposal that allows you a chance to explain the work that you are doing and would like to continue to do, or new ideas. This strategic plan is an important foundational document for moving ahead into the future, and will play a role in that. And so we'd like folks that will be preparing that to hold on to and look at the mission, the vision, the core values, and those high-level goals and strategies. I am fairly certain that most of the work, if not all, that folks are doing in the region, and folks that are paying attention to MARACOOS about, will find themselves within the strategic plan. But we think it's important to pay attention to it and to use that, because we want to manage with that going into the future. So more information will be coming out soon. We've been discussing this internally, and we'll be finalizing that in the coming weeks. If there are questions, then afterwards, the document, when it comes out, will tell you how to ask those questions, and we'll get back to you. We want to make this, again, as smooth and as efficient as possible. Also taking into consideration the challenges that we continue to face with being unable to see one another face to face or in person. So with that, I want to thank you for your time today. I want to wish you all the best for the coming weeks and into the summer, as we watch our communities continue to deal with and perhaps hopefully reopen in a safe way at some point in time. And we look forward to continuing the dialogue with you, and to what we hope to be not just a successful 2020, but a successful next 5 years operating under the umbrella of this strategic plan. Thank you very much.